on this computer. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us on, well, at least in the Bay Area, it's a slightly cloudy but clearing up Friday afternoon. My name is Tom Ahn, the Executive Director of MESA. And I'm hoping that many of you, if not all of you, are back in school. I'm sure you're all excited to be on campus, right? Right? Or maybe a little bit wary, but hopefully it'll be all good, because I think the numbers in California are going down dramatically. Anyway, we're excited to continue the MESA company convos as a way for all the students here in MESA to engage directly with industry representatives. You should keep a lookout for the monthly invitations in your inbox on the Canvas platform. Next month is PG&E, followed by Simplexity in November. Please share your feedback by completing the survey we will be posting at the end of the session. And if you're sharing on social, use hashtag MESA Company Convos. Okay. During the session, feel free to use the Q&A or chat function to ask your questions. Don't be shy. This is your chance to ask questions in a low stress setting. And let's test it out. Can everyone say happy Friday and add their school to the chat? Don't be shy. Students, there we go. We've got some Sac State. Typically we have a lot of Sac State, a lot of San Jose State. All right. I think it's dominated by Sac State.
Yeah, I'd say.
Oh, and then Woodland, that's cool. Also in the Central Valley. Santa Cruz in the house. All right. We'll get going from here. I'd like to introduce Kasey and Dorian. Those are our two distinguished representatives from Uber that are here today. I don't know if some of you guys caught our pre-event banter, but they're clearly highly personable and very friendly and eager to help you guys out. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to both of those folks. Kasey Stricklin is a senior university recruiter on Uber's university talent acquisition team. Prior to joining Uber, she led campus recruiting efforts at the Diversity and Inclusion Campus Engagement Initiative at CNA, a federally funded research and development center based in Arlington, Virginia. Kasey holds a JD from the University of Oklahoma College of Law and a master's degree in international policy and practice from George Washington University, and a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. So that's quite a diverse set of documents that she's collected over the years. She's also a licensed attorney in the state of Texas, and in her free time, she's obsessed with the Enneagram, and she also loves art, reading, wellness, and travel. And apparently she can go on and on about the Enneagram. So welcome to Kasey. Let's give her a virtual round of applause before I introduce Dorian.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then here's Dorian Perkins, a senior software engineer at Uber, where he works on the network platform team with the core infrastructure group of Uber engineering. So I'm guessing that's basically the core piece of software and architecture that Uber lives on. His team builds a service discovery and routing platform which powers Uber. Dorian joined Uber in early 2016 after completing his PhD in computer science at UC Riverside, go Highlanders, where he conducted research on distributed storage systems. And Dorian also completed his BS and MS in computer science at UC Riverside. Prior to Uber, Dorian completed internships at Google, Microsoft, NEC Labs, Northrop Grumman, and Goldman Sachs. Outside of work, Dorian is a gamer and a foodie, and he loves to travel. So these past 18 months have been probably pretty difficult for him. But everyone, please welcome Kasey and Dorian, and they'll give a presentation first, but feel free to add questions to the Q&A function as they go. All right, welcome.
Awesome. All right, my turn, Tom.
Absolutely, it's your turn. I know you've been chomping at the bit.
I'm going to share my screen now. Okay.
All right, go for it.
1 second to pull everything up. All right, Dorian, can I get a Thumbs up, does it look okay? All right, cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and Tom for that great intro with our bios and all of that. Let me just go over our agenda for today really quick. We've already when it comes time for the beginning of our sections, we'll just introduce ourselves again really fast and say a little bit more about ourselves than Tom did just now. Then I'm going to talk first for about 10 minutes on kind of Uber culture, what we value, what it's like to work there. And then Dorian will go more specifically into what it's like to work as an Uber engineer, his background, what he works on, all of that good stuff. I will bring it up at the end and talk a little bit about our university recruiting process, internships, new grad roles, and all of that good stuff. And then we'll do a Q&A for about 15 minutes or so. So we're happy to take all of your questions. Again, this is really casual. So ask us whatever you're wondering about, either about being an engineer or about recruiting or anything like that. So I'm just going to skip past our little photos here. But just introduce myself again really fast. I'm a senior university recruiter on Uber's university talent acquisition team. I'm actually a newber is what we call it, meaning I just joined Uber pretty recently. I joined in June. And I specifically recruit for software engineering. So I mostly recruit for our software engineering internship. Our recruiters kind of have specific regions and schools that we work with. And one of my regions, or my main region, I guess, is California, which is why I'm here today, even though I'm actually based in Dallas myself. If you're not interested in software engineering, we have internships and new grad roles and all kinds of other fields as well. So I'll talk about that more later. All right. So I imagine most of you already know what Uber is somewhat. You've probably, hopefully used the Uber app at some point to hail a ride, maybe to get some food. Our on-demand transportation technology is kind of our core service that most of you are probably familiar with. And this is the app that kind of connects our driver partners with riders and makes everything possible. So we started out in 2009, but it's probably weird for most of us to think of a world without Uber. I remember back whenever it first started, it was so strange for me when I would see a car that had a driver driving people that were all sitting in the back seat, like they were being chauffeured. I thought that was so weird to see a private car as opposed to a taxi or something like that. And now ride sharing seems like it's been around forever. And it's just kind of this ubiquitous part of our transportation infrastructure at this point. So since 2009, we have expanded so much. We have so many new business lines that are kind of built on that core Uber matching service. So as an everyday user, again, you're probably the most familiar with Uber Rides, Uber Eats, maybe a few other services that we have like scooters and things like that. But there's actually a lot more that Uber provides that you may not be as aware of. So we have only growing, and that also kind of does that core matching where we have individuals or companies that have trucks, and we have individuals and companies who have freight, and we kind of match them up in order to transform the freight industry. We also have Uber for Business, Uber for Health, which are consists of partnerships with other businesses and organizations. And we're also growing our partnerships with transit agencies to integrate public transport options into Uber. And then like there's all kinds of things happening in other countries outside the US as well, like experimenting with Uber boats and buses and just trying to rise to the challenge of what is needed in those countries. So it's really exciting. We see this as just the beginning. Despite all this growth, we're still just a small part of the transportation space. And there's so many more ways that we want to like help people go anywhere and get anything, which is our mission. So our teams are constantly working to innovate and experiment in order to figure out where we can go next and where we can innovate next. So to talk about a few of the ways that we do this are some of our defining features. Something kind of interesting and that makes us a little unique compared to a lot of other companies is that we sit at the intersection of the digital space and the physical world. So many tech companies deal specifically with just technology solutions or software. And with Uber, you use a digital platform to usually order something and then it arrives and you use it in the real world, in the physical space. And that's a key to our business model and something that kind of makes us unique compared to a lot of other companies. We're also trying to improve people's lives on a daily basis. Millions of people around the world use Uber, rely on Uber daily. We have, of course, our riders, our drivers, eaters, shippers, just all kinds of different users. And we're in all kinds of different areas as well, like large metropolitan areas, suburbs, rural areas. So we're actually now in 10,000 cities and in 71 countries. So the expansion has just been enormous. And we're always trying to come up with more creative solutions to get more and more people access to our products. So in many ways, we've helped increase accessibility for a lot of people to transport. In some countries, the quality of life for women and people with disabilities and many other groups have been vastly improved by the services Uber provides, and we're really proud of that. Of course, safety is a huge priority for us as well and top of mind for anything we design. Like a defining part of our rider app is for riders to get into a stranger's car. So we're, of course, always thinking about how to keep our riders and our drivers and our couriers and everyone else that works with Uber as safe as possible. So our teams are constantly working on, assessing what is working, where can we. So one of the first things I was exposed to when I joined Uber, probably the very first day, was the 8 cultural norms, which the company takes extremely seriously. So the norms are core to who we are and what we do. And I hear people why we're doing something. So just really quickly, those norms are building globally and living locally, being customer obsessed, celebrating differences, making big, bold bets, acting like owners, persevering, valuing ideas over hierarchy, and doing the right thing, period. And I really hear that last one the most. We do the right thing, period. So as mentioned, one of those norms is celebrating differences, and that's exactly what we're trying to do constantly on a daily basis for Uber employees, users, drivers, anyone that has a stake in Uber. We want it to be as diverse and inclusive as possible. For employees of Uber, we currently have 12 employee resource groups for many different communities and allies of those communities to come together, support each other. So they're just constantly holding events, running initiatives and campaigns, holding office hours, just trying to be there for their members in these communities as much as possible. And our teams are also constantly working to make sure our products are as inclusive and accessible and welcoming as possible for anyone who uses Uber as well. So I wanted to give you all a resource if you're interested in learning more about diversity at Uber. I put a QR code on this slide that will take you to our diversity page. And on that page, there is a report that is excellent. It's the 2021 People and Culture Report. In that report, you can read all about the demographics of our current workplace. You can read more about all of our employee resource groups I mentioned, all kinds of initiatives that Uber is engaging in. It just has a ton of information. If you don't have a smartphone with a QR reader, no problem. Just Google Uber and diversity. It's probably the very first thing that comes up. And again, that report is the very first button on that page. And then you can read way more than I could possibly talk about today. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dorian to talk about his life as an Uber engineer and what he works on. And Dorian, I guess I will advance the slides for you. Okay. All
cool.
Right.
Thanks, Kasey. So yeah, again, my name is Dorian, and I'm a senior software engineer at Uber, where I've been working at Uber for over 5 years as an infrastructure engineer with the network platform team. Skipping what we already talked about, I think one of the interesting facts is that I joined Uber directly after I completed the PhD program in computer science at UC Riverside. I was told that less than like 1% of employees that get hired are direct applicants. But in general, we hire primarily through like referrals, sourcing, and internships. So it's great that you're here. Next slide, please. Actually, sorry, no, this is the slide that I'm on. So Kasey already touched on our growth, and As I mentioned before, I joined Uber in early 2016, and this was like a period of hyper growth for the company. And our challenge was, and actually still is, to scale efficiently. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to join Uber out of the other offers that I had, was because I had a desire to work on large scale distributed systems, have the ability to work with autonomy, and have strong opportunities for impact. And I found all of those here at Uber, and I've been surrounded by many talented engineers, which I've learned a great deal from and have supported my career growth. And so at Uber, like, we're constantly working on new innovative ways to scale the business, whether that's through our products, platforms, processes, or people. Next slide, please. And Uber's not unique in terms of the scale at which we operate, but what's certainly unique about Uber is, and particularly interesting, is the speed at which we reach that scale. So just to give you a glimpse, if you look at the slides here, this is a comparison of how we scaled over a 2-year period around the time that, starting from where I joined. And the graphs show the growth in our service mesh. So on the left in March 2016, to the right in March 2018, you can see the difference in the size of our service mesh, which is the software that we run in production, which brings the magic of our platform to our customers. So each of these tiny nodes that you see represents a different service in our architecture, and each service is basically a piece of software that accomplishes a specific task. And that entire blue chart on the left is just a blip on the map 2 years later. So during this period, we kind of similarly scaled our engineering team, which also helped to drive a lot of this growth. Next slide. And so today we have over 3,500 engineers at 16 different global tech sites, and we have over 3,000 microservices that are running across 100,000 servers globally. Next slide. And then diving deeper, you can see we have 16 tech sites that are distributed across 4 continents. And in the US and Canada, our tech sites include San Francisco, which is our headquarters. We also have an office nearby in Sunnyvale, Seattle, Boulder, Chicago, Atlanta through an acquisition, I believe, New York, and then also in Canada, we have the Toronto office. So there's plenty of places and offices and, geographically distributed. And then so some more in our business. Customers aren't just our riders. Our drivers are also customers. They use the driver app and rely on us to earn. We've also had like customers using different modalities, including bikes and scooters. And then we have other business lines besides our rides business, which includes like Eats, Uber for Business, and Freight. And so Uber Eats has been expanding rapidly over the last 18 months or so. This is our food delivery business, but it's also expanded into a convenience and grocery delivery business, and we even have prescription delivery now. And so this platform connects our eaters, restaurants, merchants to our delivery people. And yeah, a customer doesn't necessarily just need to be one, like a customer of one of these businesses. You can, for example, be an eater and also a rider. Next slide, please. And this is some highlights from our recent Uber engineering history. So outside of the US, we've recently doubled our headcount, and we have continued efforts to grow and compete in global markets. During the COVID response, we shifted a lot of engineering roles to rally around supporting Eats, and we also allowed our engineers and any role that could work remotely to work remotely during the pandemic. And we also have a number of acquisitions and divestitures. For example, we acquired Corner Shop, which breaks us into the delivery market space. Also, we acquired Postmates and Drizzly. And then we also divested some businesses, including Jump, which was the bikes and scooters, ATG, which is our autonomous driving, and Elevate, which was the kind of the big bet on it's like the short distance air travel. Next slide, please. And so this quote kind of drives home the importance of the tech in Uber's growth story. So tech drives our company, and in the competitive markets we're in, we need to keep growing and innovating while staying reliable and fast. And so this is our ultimate challenge, and it's also how we will succeed. Next slide, please. And so a bit more about my team. As I mentioned, I'm on the network platform team, and this is part of our core infrastructure group. And Thomas definitely hit the nail on the head where he said this is kind of core to our business and our architecture. Of course, this is not like a product team, but this is how we handle the user traffic coming into our business. So the network platform handles all of our traffic or ingress traffic into our data center. Responsible for handling everything from client traffic at like the mobile app level or desktop client until it reaches the backend microservices. And so this goes from those clients from the public internet through our edge routers, through our front end hosts, and then on the bottom side you see the internal load balancing, and then user code, which is like the software that we're running that handles whatever task that may be necessary. And so where I work is generally on the bottom half of this in the internal load balancing area. And so this architecture handles millions of user requests per second. And specifically what I work on is service discovery. And so I work with building software that answers the questions of which servers is service X running on, of those service instances, which of them are available to serve my request, and then how should I forward a request to that service. And so if you think back to that service mesh graph that we showed previously, you can imagine why efficiently answering that question is very important. Next slide, please. And so this is just a glimpse, but not an exhaustive list into like the day-to-day tasks and responsibilities that I have. So as an engineer on my team, we have like stand-up meetings where we discuss our projects and plans, and if there's anything that becomes a blocker, we can escalate those blockers and remove those roadblocks. Project work, which is what most people might be familiar with, and what the idea of a software engineer is, where I analyze requirements, translate those into a design, and implement new features or systems. And then there's also a lot of things that go along with that: testing, code reviews, implementing monitoring, adding documentation. We also have planning, where we have like bi-weekly sprints, and also we need to plan our like priorities in advance through like a quarterly or like a biannual process. Also at Uber, which may be different than some other companies, we're on call for our own code. So whatever we ship to production, we have alert, like a monitoring and alerts on that, and it pages our team. So we need to be able to write high quality code to ensure that we don't get interrupted by any incidents. We also do like customer support. We're an infrastructure team, so our customers are other engineers at the company. And then of course there's the KTLO work, which is keep the lights on, where we need to do system maintenance, fix any bugs that come up, and any other interruptions. So this is just basically a high level overview. I'm happy to answer any more detailed questions. Next slide, please. For Uber internships, so my team has had a few interns, and I've actually been an intern mentor, which was a rewarding summer. We tend to have our interns focus on like fixing real world problems and or like production bugs. And so these are like sometimes problems that are important but may not be like critical, but something that our team hasn't had the time to solve, and it often improves our team's quality of life or our customers' quality of life, which has a significant impact. And so interns, like, they typically interact with multiple engineers on the team, and sometimes are able to interact cross team. And so that builds a lot of relationships, and gives you a lot of experience, and also helps build a network of people that can advocate for your full-time conversion. And then so one other thing I wanted to mention is that we often think of like programming as the job, but when you think of software engineering, but software engineering and programming are two different things. So programming is just like writing the code, and that's a responsibility of a software engineer. but software engineering is also building and maintaining the code over time. That means like adapting, scaling, and making trade-offs. And since the only constant is change, to be a software engineer, you need to learn how to write software that's sustainable and can stand the test of time. And the last thing I just want to mention is throughout, like, if you throughout your job hunt or intern hunt, don't give up. I personally have applied to many companies where I've been rejected, and I've had interview loops where I thought I did well and I didn't get that offer. And then there's also the ones where you do well and finally get an offer somewhere that you're very excited to go. And I just wanted to point out, if you hadn't heard of it, the Google SRE book and software engineering at Google book that just came out. Those are really interesting resources to help you understand more about the difference between programming and software engineering. And then also the interview anti-loop is a blog post that an engineer from Google wrote years ago, which basically talks about a set of engineers at your own company that won't hire you. So, if you're ever if you're ever like interviewing and you feel down about not getting the offer, it's just a reality that, there's a lot of chance in the hiring process. And so it's good to know that, it's not necessarily personal. There's tons of other factors that go into how the interview results turn out. So don't give up. All right, and now I'll hand it back over to Kasey to discuss the university recruiting opportunities.
Yes, I could not ask for a better segue. So thank you, Dorian, for that. And I know Larry, all of that. And if I don't answer your question, please ask for more detail. So the number one resource I can refer you to is really obvious, but I have to plug our Uber career site first and foremost. It is the go-to site for all things recruiting related. It has all of our current opportunities. We also have a university specific tab up there at the top of the page that you can go to read blog posts about our internship and advice and all kinds of things. So this is the number one place I can refer you to. Here is uber.com/careers. Thank you, Danielle. It is now in the chat. I'm going to talk about several different opportunities today in more detail, but I will also mention in a second, some of our opportunities are open right now, some are not, some are already closed for the year. They're all just kind of on different timetables. So if you check back often, you will make sure not to miss out on anything. I also definitely highly recommend setting a Google job alert for anything you're interested in, and then you'll be the first to know whenever we do post something. You don't want to miss those opportunities. Some of our opportunities are open for only a really short amount of time. So these are all of the different programs that we have student opportunities in. But it is one of the ones it's already closed for this year, unfortunately, but it is for rising seniors. You apply when you are about to be a senior or just became a senior. So if you are a little more junior in your college career, then that's one you might want to set a Google alert for. Keep an eye out. Of course, software engineering, that's our biggest internship program, the most interns that we have. We also have a program called UberSTAR, which is it's software engineering as well, but it's for first and second year students. So that's a really neat one to look at. We also just added strategic finance, a few UberSTAR positions in strategic finance. So if that's your thing, then there are also some UberSTAR positions for you if you're a first or second year student. So for those opportunities, I'm going to talk about the timeline and kind of the requirements for those. If you're interested in anything else on this list, though, there's an opportunity for everyone. We just kind of have to find the right thing for you. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on this slide because it's kind of a why Uber slide. And we've already talked a lot about why Uber, what we're doing. Dorian gave some great insight already into the Uber internship process. So just to go into a little bit more detail on that, as he already mentioned, our internships are totally real world based. So you're not doing a hypothetical project. You're not getting coffee. Like you have owner And a lot of our projects, our intern projects, do deploy out into the real world. So you, to get to that last point, could very easily be making an impact on people's real lives, empowering people in communities, which we've already talked about is a large reason why we do what we do, and a big impact that we have. And then we're, something else that is special about the internship program is you are definitely a valued member of your team when you're an intern, and you have this whole support network. So you do have a mentor, as Dorian mentioned, he was a mentor previously for interns. You of course have a manager and a team that you work on. You have, we have the ability to also place you with a buddy in one of our employee resource groups if you're interested in that. And that is kind of neat because they could be in a different part of the company, have a different role, and that's a whole additional learning experience for you. And then you have a talent advisor in HR as well. And these people kind of form a support network for you as you do take ownership of that real world project. And then of course you have the whole intern class as well to learn from. And of course we host intern events throughout your time as an intern. And we have interns all over the world as well. So it's truly a global company, and you have the ability to learn about what's happening in all of these other markets. What are the other interns working on, to learn from people just in other cultures too, which is always cool. So normally I plug our diversity page here, but I've already done that. So I'm going to skip forward here. Looks like it's taking a second. Okay. So to talk a little bit more in depth now about those opportunities that I mentioned, this is the timeline for our software engineering internship positions. Our software engineering internship position is open right now. Once we get to the Q&A section, I'll put links to our different opportunities for students that are open right now for software engineering. So for this one, I will note that it does have these timetables. If you go into our internship posting, you can see that our application is open at sometimes and closed in others. It actually says that it closed yesterday, but we are partaking in a conference right now, so we decided to extend it through the weekend. So if you haven't applied for our internship yet and you're interested, I would get it in today. If you can, definitely getting it in this first period of time when it's open is your best chance of success. It will open again 2 more times for a week in like October. So if you don't get it in before it closes, you have another opportunity, but our roles are open until filled. So just best to get it in as early as you can. And then this is the interview process. So we have, obviously you put in your application. Then if one of our recruiters decides to virtual interviews, so they're on Zoom, 60 minutes with an engineer, and we use code signals. So you would be coding and the engineer will follow along and watch you. You'll explain what you're doing. The internship is definitely paid, to the question that just got put in the chat. It's pretty well paid. So there's no difference between the 2 interviews. They're exactly the same, just with a different engineer and a different problem that you would be working on. So the format is the same. And then if you get an offer after completing and passing those 2 interviews, then we would help preference which team you want to work on, what location you want to be at. If fingers crossed we're in person this summer, which is definitely our goal. We really want it to be in person if possible, but of course, balancing safety as well. So UberSTAR, again, that's also a software engineering opportunity. You apply when you're a 1st or 2nd year. So real quick on that, if you are a 1st or 2nd year student, but you have experience already in software engineering, maybe you went to a technical high school or you've already done internships in software engineering, you don't have to do UberSTAR. Like, you are still eligible if you're a university student of any level, including a master's student, you're eligible to apply to our regular software engineering internship. So UberSTAR is an opportunity for those who don't have as much software engineering or computer science experience yet, 1st and 2nd years, to do an internship that's a little more hands-on. So in our software engineering internship, you kind of have ownership of your own project. You're expected to be a little more independent, even though you do have that support network. And then for UberSTAR, you have a little bit more, and you work on a team with 1 or 2 other interns for your project. It's a little more hands-on. So you just need to have completed an introductory computer science course to apply. And let's see, was there a question about it? No. Okay. So we also have new grad roles. If anyone is graduating this year, if you're a senior or an equivalent that you're graduating, or if you graduated this last May, then we do have new grad software engineering roles open right now as well for backend engineers. Of course, the interview process for a new grad role is a little more extensive because it is a full-time role. So it has also a technical virtual interview first, and then what we call an on-site, even though it's virtual right now, which just means that it's kind of this whole interview day, 4 interviews focused on a certain topic. And then the same thing, an offer comes after that kind of 2-step process. Again, I will put all the links to internships and new grad roles and UberSTAR in the chat when we get to the Q&A portion, and I'm able to look them up really quick. But yeah, so we have that open right now as well. So all for a period of time at the end of the weekend. So just to go back to the APM program really fast, Associate Product Manager. As I mentioned, this one is closed for the year already. So again, you apply when you are a rising senior, and then it is actually a full-time program. So once you graduate, you would start it. It's really cool. Basically, it's a boot camp first, and then you go into rotations around the company for 2 years and get experience in different parts of the company. There's typically an international portion as well, as they're able to do that. The process for it is more extensive than our internships because, again, it's a full-time role. First, as you can see, I didn't say that any of the other programs have any kind of a pre-assessment or anything like that. But for APM, you do have a take-home exercise first. Then you'll have 2 technical virtual interviews, and then a final, more extensive on-site kind of day. So it's definitely a more extensive process, but for those that get in, it is a really cool opportunity. So I'm going to skip past that slide and just one more time plug uber.com/careers. Again, that's where you'll find all of these. I'll put them in the chat, but if you miss it, or if you want to look around at what else is open, go to our university recruiting page, go to the Uber career site, and find everything that you need. So with that, I am done talking about recruiting. So I guess Tom is going to come up, but let me see. I think there's some questions I'll already talk about. If you're not a freshman or sophomore, but you graduate at the same time as those are currently sophomores. In special cases like that, where someone might be eligible for UberSTAR, I think just apply is the best thing you can do. Just apply for it, and then they can kind of parse out your circumstances from there. You can always attach a note at the end of your resume, so it'll go into your file as well, and then they'll understand the circumstances. Did I miss anything?
Well, there are a lot of sort of logistical questions, but I think you're going to be putting links into the chat, and also I think folks should absolutely go to uber.com careers and explore, and I'm sure all of those detailed questions will be answered around deadlines and timeframes and whatnot. There is a question that's more, I think, geared toward Dorian, and it says, how well would you rate your company code documentation? Do you have a well-written wiki documenting what various procedures do? I'm saying that's a Dorian question because I have no idea what he's talking about. So
yeah,
definitely not for me, Tom.
Yeah, I think the answer there, and probably the answer anywhere, would be it varies. I think that like our different services that have a lot of users tend to be documented much better than something that has very limited usage. And yeah, I mean, I think I would rate the documentation pretty well. Of course, I can't really give you the best answer because, as I said before, Uber is the first place that I've worked at least as a full-time engineer, where I've had to deal with more of these problems. So I can't compare to like another full-time experience at a different company.
Actually, we have a question about, oh, here we go. Oh, no, these are more questions about STAR program. Do you just need to be a first or second year student to be eligible for the STAR program?
Yeah, so someone was asking if they're more like a junior, can they still apply to STAR? You know, everyone has different circumstances. Again, doesn't hurt to apply because the most we can do is just say no if you're not eligible. But I mean, the main thing is just you need to be a first or second year to apply. However, your school kind of considers that. So if you are a third year, a junior, then you wouldn't be eligible for UberSTAR. If you think you are eligible based on certain circumstances, then again, you can most likely the best thing to do, since it might be a different recruiter for each person, would be to like when you upload your resume, you can put another page after, like put them together in the same document, and you can put a note explaining the circumstances and why you think you're eligible, and we can take a look at it from there.
Would it be fair to say that the number of years you've spent at a university is less important than the number of years you have until degree completion?
Kind of. For UberSTAR, I mean, that's just the eligibility requirements is first and second years. So like for our main internship, there is a requirement of how much time you still have to have. You have to have your internship. There's not any kind of specific requirement like that for STAR. We always just say first or second year. So I'm not sure exactly how to think about it now that you say that, with talking about how much time you have.
Well, I think it comes into play with some of our students are community college students, so they'll be transferring to a 4-year. So how do you calculate what year you're at, in terms of the eligibility?
Yeah, and we definitely absolutely welcome community college students. We love that. And if there is some kind of special circumstances like that where it just kind of isn't equivalent at your school, just explain it to us in your application through uploading a note or something, and we can always contact you and talk about it if we want to. Again, for STAR, the only requirement for a computer science background is to have that at least one introductory course. So if that sounds more like your circumstance, then that might be the right program for you. We'll just have to explore it.
This is a question first for Dorian and then also for Kasey. Dorian, you have a PhD and you're in your current role. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process or planning process in your career, the decision to go for an advanced degree, and what advice you might give to students who are on the call right now who are all undergrads?
I see. Yeah, I mean, I guess while I was an undergrad, I had opportunities to start a full-time position directly after I graduated from undergrad. But I had been involved in National Society of Black Engineers and also a few other organizations on campus that were targeted towards like diversity in STEM fields. And one of the stats that I had heard, I can't remember exactly where it was from, but that like it was some very, very low like fraction of 1% of PhDs are African American. And so that was one of the things that really drove me to wanted to do the graduate program. And another reason is because I had some other professors from the university that were like encouraging me to continue and continue my education and go into the grad program. So it was kind of those factors. Now, I guess specifically towards software engineering, I don't think that you need a PhD to be a great software engineer. In fact, I work with many people that don't have necessarily advanced degrees, but there's a good amount that do actually. And I also have worked with people that have non-traditional backgrounds, some people that have gone to boot camps. I worked with an engineer who had a medical degree and decided to switch roles and go into software. So yeah, I don't find that any specific degree path or education path necessarily is required to be a software engineer. And as long as you've kind of learned the fundamentals and you can demonstrate them, then that is that's good enough. Kasey.
I would ask, thank you, Dorian. I'm going to ask Kasey the similar question. I mean, you have multiple advanced degrees, and yet I don't think they're necessarily they can be seen as like preparatory pathways to what you're doing right now.
No.
So what are some of your thoughts on advanced degrees for students like ours that are on the line right now?
Yeah, I have definitely, like I said, had a very winding career path. It's taken me a long time to figure out what was the right thought I should be doing and what I thought sounded impressive and things like that. It's taken me until I got older to really embrace doing what I love doing instead of just like what I thought was like the right thing to do. That said, I honestly really loved law school. I don't know if anyone here is even considering that, because it's definitely not really a software engineering path, but there is always like patent law or something like that for those who have a STEM background. So there's kind of some potential avenues there. I loved law school so much. I think going to law school can prepare you for really any career path. It gives you some really interesting skills and helps you stick out on resumes in ways that like other pathways wouldn't like provide. So I never wanted to practice law. I did it mostly because I wanted to get those skills and because I wanted to stand out and because I don't know. I'm still very grateful I did it, because I do think it's helped me like stand out in every interview process I've had. I have a lot of problem solving and critical thinking and logic skills that I definitely would not have had if I'd done any other career path, but it does take a lot of money to go to law school. It's 3 more years of your career. So you really have to weigh the pros and cons there and whether it's worth it for you and what you're interested in doing. I do have a master's as well. I got my master's actually after I went to law school, because some master's programs are what are considered mid-career, which is what I did. So if you have work experience already, or in my case, and this is a little more rare, if you already have an advanced degree, then you qualify for this mid-career program. For me, I was doing international affairs at the time. And so I wanted to kind of do a career pivot without taking on a lot more debt and taking a lot more time out of my life. So a mid-career program provided the opportunity to do that in a shortened time frame and still get the same degree. So I don't know that I would recommend either of those to anyone on here, but that's what I did. And they've eventually got me a lot of really cool experiences. I'm super happy with how things have worked out, and I'm still here at Uber today. Finally kind of found the place that I felt like I belonged, and all of those kind of contributed to that along the way.
Cool, thank you. Speaking of standing out in a different way, Dorian, for folks of color, especially Black and brown folks in the field of engineering and in the tech industry, folks are still, those folks are still minorities and stand out for different reasons. Can you talk about your experience, your day-to-day experiences as a person of color in engineering at Uber, overall what that's been like and how that's evolved as you've moved forward in your career?
Sure. I guess like I don't feel that that's hindered me at all in my career at Uber. And I think that as Kasey had mentioned, diversity is really welcome. So I guess like I wouldn't say that I had a ton of it to say, or a ton to say about it at Uber. We definitely have like various employee resource groups, or ERGs as we call them, for people, folks from different backgrounds that want to kind of support each other in their career and professional goals. And yeah, I mean, like on I don't feel that I mean, I'm not sure what else to really add there. I guess it hasn't been, you know, anything that's kind of really stood out to me, except for the fact that, I mean, in general, in tech, you'll find that there's just less representation. And so one of my, you know, goals has been to, you know, help increase that representation. And I'm part of like another professional engineering organization for, you know, African-American engineers that, you know, I try to help recruit people over to the company by like word of mouth and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only thing that I would say is, and that's the reason that I wanted to, you know, join Kasey here today, is just to try to help improve those numbers.
Can I chime in really quick too?
Absolutely, go for it.
So I was going to mention also, well, first of all, on the university recruiting team, obviously diversity is a huge priority for us. We just hired a new person that is the head of global diverse university recruiting for us. So it's something we're really prioritizing. In that diversity report that I plugged earlier, the 2021 People and Culture report, you can see all of the demographics, like our current statistics of our workforce. When I came on, that's something I was really impressed with, was how transparent the company was with like diversity statistics and kind of being upfront about, this is where we're currently lacking in the diversity front. This is where we're going, our goals. And I've seen, you know, we're definitely not perfect in that regard with race, gender. I mean, all the kinds of diversity you can think of, we could absolutely do better, but I've seen a lot of like moves to do that. So hopefully it'll only get better in the future. For the university team, again, as I mentioned, diversity is really important for us. And I meant to say this earlier, for most of our entry, we do have new grad roles, as I said, some open right now, but most of our interns are the entry level hires that we hire. So we try to convert as many of our interns to full-time hires, full-time software engineers as we can. That's our goal for all interns, is to convert. So I'm hoping that having diversity be a priority for the university recruiting team and hiring more and more diverse classes of interns will only make the future of Uber more and more diverse as well. And so you all are a big part of that. And that's why we're so glad to be here today.
So Kasey, I was noticing that that you had been involved in diversity and inclusion work prior to Uber. And so can you speak a little bit about how you came to that and how you decided to work for Uber?
Sure. Yes. So my former company did have I know it's a mouthful, diversity, inclusion, campus engagement initiative. It was a very small organization, so they were interested in increasing outreach to particularly HBCUs and HSIs. And I had a campus recruiting background because after I graduated law school, I worked in recruiting for the law school for 2 years. And so I was very keen to get back into campus recruiting however I could. And I was in the defense industry previously, so it's also very male dominated, just as the tech industry is. So I spent a lot of time in my previous role. I was an analyst in that job before I started recruiting. So I was very unsure how I fit in as a woman in the field. So I very much wanted the company to become more diverse. And when they started this diversity initiative, jumped on the chance to do it and ended up leading it, and then wanted the opportunity to do campus recruiting full time. Came to Uber because as I said, I came from a company that was a lot smaller, it had a lot less resources. It was a lot slower because it was kind of government affiliated. It just didn't have the ability to make change very quickly the way that Uber does. Things are always changing and evolving at Uber. So I'm excited to see what we can do. Again, I'm super new here, but I've already seen a lot of change just in the time I've been here. And so I'm excited to see what we can do this year and going forward with changing the demographics of the company.
Cool. We're running out of time, so I do just want to give the students, like if you could, there's a certain survey link that Danielle just posted in the chat. So if you guys could do that, I just want to ask you a couple more quick questions. I think a student asked a question about the demographics of your intern pool.
Yeah.
If you have like off the top of your head estimates about what that's like, including women.
Yeah, I was just typing an answer to it saying that I don't have it on hand. So sorry, I don't have exact numbers for you, but I know because I wasn't involved in recruiting last year either. But I know that they have increased the number of women and underrepresented peoples in the tech industry in our intern class this last year. And we have big goals for it going forward. So we want to have gender parity in our internship. And then we have a high number as well for underrepresented peoples that we want to hit. So that's what we're working towards, constantly striving for that. Also, I might have only sent the internship links to hosts and panelists as well. So I'm going to put those really quick in the chat for everyone before we hop off.
Cool. Dorian, I have more of a techie question for you.
Sure.
How do you guys, I went to a conference a couple years ago, and it had to do with invention, education, and inclusion. And one of the panelists was an inventor who was wheelchair bound, and the point that he made was like, we celebrate a lot of innovation, but and rideshare is one of them, and he acknowledged that it's a great new innovation, and yet as a person who's wheelchair bound, I'm really not able to take advantage of that. So I was wondering how you guys on the engineering team accounted for diversity in terms of user diversity, whether it's folks with disabilities or even cultural diversity. How do you account for those challenges in your engineering, in your work?
Sure, yeah. So I guess I'll start by saying that being on the infrastructure team and not on a product team, I don't have a lot of exposure to exactly what we're doing. But I do know that there is a product offering for wheelchair, I think is it WAV, I think it's wheelchair assistant vehicles, but there's drivers that have vehicles that are specifically equipped to serve those people. Yeah, and then in terms of just diversity of customers in general, I know that there have been a lot of things that the different product teams have done to ensure that there isn't any kind of profiling or based on location or the photo of a driver or a rider, to ensure that the platform operates with and tries to exclude as much of those type of behaviors as possible. But again, I don't have direct knowledge of these things, so this is just kind of from my understanding. I don't know if Kasey,
Cool.
if you have anything separate.
Yeah, I mean, non-engineer obviously working on these specific things. I know, at least for us on our team, we recently joined Access Computing, which is a University of Washington based, but they cover the whole US group that does promoting obviously access to computing careers for students. And we have joined as an industry affiliate. So we'll be getting more involved in the conversations with other industry partners and Access Computing to talk about how we can recruit more from that community, but also how we have the opportunity to get our engineers involved in the conversations as well, to learn more from them and pick their brains on things. So I know a lot of teams are already doing things on this, but just another chance for us to get even more accessible. We always want to do that.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate your directness and honesty and the depth of your answers. We really appreciate the time that you've taken. Unless you have any last words, I think we can let folks go and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Tom, for moderating, and thank you everyone for coming. My last word is just to apply for our internships or our new grad roles. If you haven't already, we would love to talk to you more.
Yeah, just echoing that. Thanks everyone for joining.
All righty. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. I really could have kept asking you guys questions about like big bets and green tech and like, frankly, flying vehicles, man. Like,
well, we don't do flying vehicles anymore. That was divested, but it wasn't
okay.
really- yeah.
That sounded crazy.
Dorian was there when they were talking, when that was part of the company. I was not, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, I thought it was an interesting, big, bold bet, but yeah, I guess we'll see how that turns out, with the company that now kind of manages it.
Cool. So good luck to you guys. Danielle, did you want to close out in some other way?
No, I think that's all. We are recording this session, so